Okay, so here's an interesting idea that when people sometimes say that life or existence or the world is a simulation, right? Or everything, reality is a simulation. I have issue with that, and I always have to pause because to me, I look at it more objectively, like what people are identifying is not really what they think they're saying, right? It's not so much, oh, the existence or universe or reality is a simulation. A lot of the things they would point to or observe, they take for granted. And so in reality, society is the simulation, like all the artificial things we do and take for granted, whether it be social interaction, whether it be morality, whether it be, all these things that we take for granted. And you can do it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They can have their uses, they can be functional, right? But they're not real or absolute. They're things that we pose, right? A lot of things revolve around us, right? We want the world to revolve around people. That's why we have religions. That's why we have certain, we have humans are very egotistical. Like they want everything to revolve around them and think that everything, should go their way. That's why we believe in things like luck and superstition, right? Like, oh, you think something's lucky because it benefited you, but it's like it could be something random that happens. It's only luck because you're only thinking from your perspective and your bias and you want things to revolve around you. So again, it's the egotism. So you realize that the real simulation is society, all the sort of on rails things that you have to do. You're born, you don't choose where you're born, your family, anything like that. So you don't choose that. Then you grow up, you're raised by your parents, you're indoctrinated that way. Then you go to school, then you get a college, then you go to job, right? Then you're supposed to get married and get a white picket fence. And then you wonder somewhere in there, like, oh, reality is a simulation by aliens or by some, whatever, however people explain that. But I always find that stupid. The real simulation of all these things that are controlled and on rails, that's artificial, and it is a simulation, but it's done by people. People made that simulation, and it's called society. Like all those things you point to. I wish I should look up something to do with this. Hang on. Okay, let's look at it on Wikipedia and try to debunk it. Simulation hypothesis proposes that what one experiences in the real world is actually a simulated reality, such as computer simulation in which humans are constructs. There's been much debate over the topic in the philosophical discourse and regarding the practical applications in computing. 2003 proposed the argument if a civilization becomes capable of creating conscious simulations, it could generate so many simulated beings that a randomly chosen consciousness entity would almost certainly be in a simulation. This poses a trilemma. But like, what are some of the specific examples that people say of why, there's certain things like people would point to? Yeah, the element and level of control in society that we take for granted. See, we don't think about it. Oh, that's just absolute. That's just everyday life. That's just part of being an adult. That's just part of, those are the elements that are so controlled and so rigid and on rails that sometimes you see the simulation break, basically. Oh, society is absolute, but then something happens that makes you realize, oh, it's not. We just pretend it is because it can be useful, functional, whatever, right? But something will happen that breaks your illusion of that, right? You realize, oh, you can just do whatever you want. You could just go out and live in the woods if society didn't try to stop you, or you could be a minimalist. A lot of the social things you do are just, again, artificial. You didn't choose your family. You didn't choose anything, really. So basically, I think the whole thing is stupid because a lot of the things people would point to, I want to show some examples, but it's all going to be things that are functions of society that we just take for granted. And anytime something that happens outside of it, like, again, something that we don't agree with or something we don't expect or something we can't explain, we would say, oh, that kind of triggers our cognitive dissonance. The most supportive evidence comes from quantum mechanics. Nature isn't real. Particles in determined states, such as specific locations, don't seem to exist unless you actually observe or measure them. Instead, they are a mix of different states simultaneously. Don't seem to exist. It's like it almost sounds like the if a tree falls and you don't hear it, was it really there? Or does it make a sound? Nature isn't real. Particles in determined states, such as specific locations, don't seem to exist. But yeah, that's the real trick. Like, think about the Truman Show, of course. Like, oh, that seems like it's about somebody who's trapped in a TV show. But what if it's an analogy for society, which is what I've always viewed it as, which why I consider it such a great movie, beyond just, oh, it's a satire and reality TV and some of these things that are predicted, sure, but like celebrity culture and stuff. But the bigger picture point is, no, it's an analogy for society. Sea Haven is the world where, again, the reason why Truman discovers his life is a TV show isn't just because he happens to get older and he's now noticing things around him. It's partly because he's having a midlife crisis that you would normally have in society too, right? And that's what the show doesn't account for. So now he wants to go to Fiji. He wants to do all these things, travel, do something different to break the monotony and the routine that people have this happen in ordinary life because of society. So again, it's an analogy for that. So you realize the issue is that Truman, again, is like the everyman in society. So it's like you and me, where again, you're born, you don't choose where, you don't choose the family, you're indoctrinated heavily in youth before you can critically think for yourself. Then you go to school, you're indoctrinated there, you're kind of, subject to authority. Then you, again, college, job, everything is on rails. So it's not a question of whether it's good or bad. That's where the simulation idea comes from. Like everything is just like sort of a scripted artificial construct that people are making, even if you think it's functional and productive and useful and worth doing. None of that stuff is real or absolute, right? Those are all man-made, actively artificial things that are changing based on cultures and societies, and again, they're not intrinsic or real. So we question like some larger, simulation of nature or the universe, but we don't see or realize or are actively aware of the simulation that we go through every day, which again is man-made artificial constructs of society. Or it takes me back to an old quote of mine where I say, like, I ask this question in a story, in a short story, have a character ask, like, what is this? And so that's sort of asking of existence and self-awareness, like, what exactly is this? How did it determine, that you are this person, that you have this consciousness? So, like, what exactly is that? And what is kind of everything? They ask it in a very kind of, I don't know, larger than life way. It's kind of hard to explain, but just that question, like, what is this, as in the universe, reality, existence, but your awareness, right? Why are you this exact person? Why do you have this exact consciousness, right?